Hello, boys and girls. Appleblossom and I are back. I realized that chapter 3 was quite short, so I decided I would go ahead and do chapter 4 and get it up there today for you. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about before we start chapter 4 and Appleblossom the Possum is two words that came up: nocturnal, which I bet most of you already know what that means. It's those animals that hide during the day. They find safety and we don't really see them, and then they come out at night to find their food and to do all the things that they need to do, and then they kind of go back to their little hiding places and they hide so that humans and other animals don't see them during the day. The other thing was that possums are marsupials, and they are the only animals in North America that are marsupials. And we get to see them living where we do. We get to see them often, don't we? Koalas and kangaroos live all the way on the other side of the world. They live in Australia, and so we only see them if we go to the zoo or somewhere special like that. So I thought that was really cool too, about teaching us animal fantasy. Remember, the author has to do tons and tons of research in order to teach us about the animals, even though it is a fantasy book and the animals are talking. So let's get back into Appleblossom the Possum. At the end, they were waiting for a tasty snack that Mama went out to find for them. So let's see what happens. Chapter 4. They are nomads. Another cool word. Or, as Mama Possum explains, ours is a road of show. At the end of every few nights, we find a new sleeping spot. Some are better than others, but don't even think about hanging your hat and calling any place home. So nomads must mean that they travel all the time and they never really set up a place like you and I do to live for a long time. Appleblossom wonders what that means because they don't wear hats, although she would like to. Now that they're out of the pouch, they travel on their mother's back whenever they relocate. All 13 of them. And this always happens when the sun goes down. Mama Possum has rules, but one is more important than all the others put together. This one rule cannot be broken ever. It's called bedtime. Nothing matters more than following her exact instructions when Mama Possum says that it's time to burrow under a log, squeeze into a drain pipe, or slide under a seldom used barbecue. When the sun starts to change the color of the dark sky to something close to a ripe plum, they know that it's time to disappear. Bodies safely hidden, then wide eyes shut. All the nocturnal animals do the same thing. They vanish from view. The raccoons return to the hills. The bats find hollows in trees and rocks. The skunks slip away like magicians. The beetles and the moths simply stop moving. Mama Possum's knowledge has been passed down from possum to possum. Now it's her turn to be a teacher. Darkness fully falls and her baby's awake again, huddled in a circle. Her brood is 3 months old when she reveals her most important information. We are awake only at night because when the sun is out, monsters rule the world. Amlet was the last one to stop sucking his thumb, and now he can't help himself. He puts his whole hand in his mouth, but not before saying, "Monsters?" Mama Possum tries to make her voice sound comforting, even though what she says isn't. Look at poor Amlet. Yes, now there are 3 kinds of monsters, and all 3 kinds are terrifying. They are present at night, but they really own the day. Appleblossom's brothers and sisters move closer to one another, and Mama Possum continues. The first kind of monster is made of metal. They have wheels and bright eyes when they are out after dark. Their eyes are blinding. Antonio interrupts. We've heard the metal monsters before. They are loud. Mama Possum nods. Yes, Antonio. The metal monsters roar and honk, and they move very, very fast. They can flatten an animal in an instant if one gets in the way. Appleblossom can't even think about something so frightening. She tries to close her ears, but it isn't like closing her eyes. She can still hear her mother's voice. The metal monsters are called cars and trucks. The ones that live around here only go on certain paths. Some of these paths, ones far from here, are so wide and so filled with cars and trucks that at night they look like ribbons of white and red lights. Only a fool would ever go near these huge metal monsters' paths. Only a fool or someone with no other option. Appleblossom promises herself to always stay away from the wide monster path. Antonio makes a comment, but the cars sleep and they are harmless as boulders. You've taken us near a car when its chest was cold and its eyes were dark. Mama Possum rubbed her hands together. Yes, this is part of what you must learn. When is a car awake and when is it asleep? Appleblossom raises her hand. So what we need to know is what wakes them up. It takes Mama Possum a long time to answer. Her nose twitches, and then she finally says, the second kind of monster has formed an alliance with the cars and the trucks, so our understanding of both enemies is important. The monsters work together. The second monster wakes up first. Amlet follows with, what's the second kind of monster? Appleblossom asks, what is an alliance? Mama Possum steadies herself. Now is as good a time as ever to spill the beans. Alan looks around. What beans? Amlet gives him a small kick. It's a saying, Alan. It means she's telling us the whole story. Alan looks disappointed. Oh, I like beans, especially the dark ones that have spicy sauce. Suddenly, Appleblossom is very, very frightened. Mama Possum wraps her long tail around Appleblossom and pulls her close. The second category of scary creatures walks on 2 feet. They smell like dead flowers, salt, and grease. Everything scares them. They're always angry, and they don't have tails. Not having tails seemed very sad to the babies. Angie shakes her head. She is dramatic and is acknowledged now as being the best performer of the group. She strikes her signature pose with a hand to her forehead as she wails, an animal without a tail is so sad. At her side, Alyssa adds, maybe that's why they're so angry. Whispers of so sad and angry buzz through the group. Mama Possum waits until they've quieted down and then continues. The second monsters are called people. The people cover themselves in layers of clothes because they have very little fur. They scream when they see night creatures. They are noisy and unpredictable. They are dangerous and not very smart, believe me. All the possum babies stare at their mother. It's clear they do not believe her. Now the people don't like to share. That is the biggest problem. So they set traps and they use weapons and poison. They are sneaky and mean. But the good part is that most of the time they don't climb trees at night or go into hedges or big holes. Sighs of relief come from the babies, and they are big sighs. Mama Possum adds, the people are awake for part of the night, but they go into their houses and stare at boxes there. Appleblossom is confused. What kind of boxes? Mama Possum's eyes narrow. The boxes have light and sound, and the people watch them from the contraptions for hours. Some of the light boxes hang on the wall of the houses. Some are just off the ground, and others are held right in their hands. Antonio waves his tail. I think the light boxes might be telling the monsters what to do. Mama Possum looks as if she's giving this idea some thought. But the discussion is over, and no one objects when she says, "We've had enough for one night." Appleblossom can't fall asleep after her mother's big talk. The world's a scary place and she needs to learn so much to stay safe. She isn't sure that she's up to the job. Her acting skills aren't as advanced as her brothers and sisters. She doesn't have any special talents like dancing or singing or speaking with an accent. She's good at smelling night blossom jasmine and watching the bats swirl in the dark sky as they circle the streetlights. She's good at observing the world. Does that count? In the distance, the sun edges up over the tree tops, and Appleblossom feels her tail trembling. Her whole family is hidden in a mildewy umbrella that's on its side in a garden not far from where she now realizes people live. At a distance on one of the paths is a car. It isn't moving, but that doesn't make her feel any better. Appleblossom squeezes her eyes shut and tries to make the bad thoughts go away when Antonio whispers, "Appleblossom, I'm awake." Appleblossom whispers back, "I'm afraid." "Me too," he says. A few moments later, another voice says, "I'm not afraid, but I can't sleep either." It's Amlet. Appleblossom wonders if he's just acting brave right now or if he's being truthful. He's a very good actor. Appleblossom doesn't want to cry. She might wake everyone up, or worse, she might wake up a monster. "So what do we do?" she asks. Antonio whispers back to her, "We watch out for each other. I'll keep my eye on you two, and you do the same." Appleblossom's mouth wobbled in a small smile. "We could snuggle closer." Amlet pushes his way in between Antonio and Appleblossom. "Good idea. You two can be lookouts. I'll huddle in the middle." Appleblossom and Antonio are quiet, but they feel better. And before they know it, all three possums are sound asleep. That's the end of chapter 4.